Good morning and welcome to the Sabi Sounds. It's a nice cool morning here. We've been lucky because it's overcast. I'm not sure how long it will last, this overcast weather. And I say we'll be lucky. It's obviously great to have the sun shining when we're looking at animals, shining on them, but it is nice and cool, this overcast weather. So we're enjoying that, and when I say we, it's myself and Brian out together today, and Brent and Andrew are busy working with Alex on Djuma, and hopefully they will be joining us possibly a little bit later in the drive, so there is a chance that will happen, so that's something to potentially look forward to. And so far, just to update you on where we've come from, we left the research camp where we stay now. It's the new accommodation. We don't head back to the Manyeleti anymore, as I'm sure most of you are aware that have been following the show. So enjoying waking up at work and not having to commute half an hour as we used to. And we left our camp, and we haven't driven too far. We came past Vuyatela Dam, stopping to look for tracks along the way, but haven't come up with anything so far. So we are just going to continue and head into an area where around kind of Twin Dams, Treehouse Dam. It's an area that has provided us with a lot of good leopard sightings, namely Quarantine and Djuma, two brothers that have relatively recently been kicked out by their mother, and they're still occupying quite a small territory, which makes our life easy in finding them because they haven't acquired a large territory as a dominant male leopard would. So they travel in smaller kind of areas for now, and that's where I've had a lot of luck in the past. And we did also have some lions calling last night in that area, so we'll head down there and see if we get lucky. If anybody would like to ask questions at any stage, please send them through, and to do that you would hashtag Safari Live on Twitter or questions@WildEarthTV on email. And between Alex and Andrew, we'll be sharing the director's role today until hopefully Alex manages to get the jigger up and running, and then Andrew will jump on camera with Brent and Alex will continue the directing. It's great having Alex out in the field again because he was here during the last stints that I did, but not for very long, and he's a great guy. He's been around the Wild Earth team for many years, so he's got a lot of tricks up his sleeve and a great guy to have out in the field with us. And he also enjoys the change of scenery because he's very often based in the city and fixing problems from there, so great for him to be out on the adventure with us. I remember my first morning at Djuma, myself and Alex had walked from the research camp where we base ourselves, or we used to base ourselves just during the day. Now we base there day and night. But we had walked, it's about a 300-meter walk from the accommodation to the final control room, and we had walked straight past a leopard kill. Karula had killed a young impala and hoisted it into a marula tree. And when we walked back the second time, that's when we noticed the impala kill up the tree and the leopard lying below. So we had walked straight past her without even noticing. That was a great start to the Safari Live experience for me. I can hear a black-headed oriole calling. Just going to switch off so you can at least hear the call. There you go. But I can't see it. It's a very brightly colored bird. It's a bright yellow color with a black head. There it is. Okay, Brian, at kind of 10 o'clock, I'll guide you in. Sorry. Okay, a little bit more to the left and there. Oh, yeah, it's still there. And then, yeah, to that greener tree. And you can just see it hopping around in there, slightly to the right, and you are centered on it. It's kind of slap bang in the well done. Well done, Brian. Beautiful. It really is wonderful to be able to see some of the culprits that you may so often hear on these drives. Well done there, Brian. Because there are so many noises that these birds create during the drive, and that's a very distinctive one, so one that I'm sure a lot of you will be able to remember, and therefore be able to identify the bird simply from its call. And in birding competitions and in kind of birding society, for those of you who aren't big birders, if you can claim to have seen a bird or tick a bird off a list in certain competitions simply by hearing its call and being able to positively identify it from its call. So you don't necessarily have to see it, but just to be able to know its call is considered the same in terms of being able to tick it off a list. I know we stopped for one yesterday, but they just are really such interesting animals to watch, and it's great that they've grown in size so dramatically. The spiders. And let's see what's going on here. You can see the much smaller male on this side of the web and the female on the other side of the web, and he's literally hiding from her behind that small carcass of, I'm not sure what that's the leftovers of. It looks like a moth that she's kind of wrapped up there, that she'll feed on as and when it suits her. Looks like she may be doing some work on it now, but that male needs to be careful he doesn't get caught up in the fray. And you'll notice another male up to the right. So, as I did mention yesterday, and another one there can often be several males competing for the right to mate. And then the very, very small spiders, like kleptoparasites, they're called dewdrop spiders. It's difficult to see in this light, but some of them you can see a silver, shiny abdomen shining on them, and it kind of resembles a dewdrop. So those, as I said, they're kleptoparasites, so they will steal food from this female, and as you can see, they are very small, so they'll just sneak in and feed on the kill, just as this male's trying to do now. But he's taking a chance because, as I have said, the females will consider them as a food source. So he needs to be careful. He does know he's fairly safe on this side of the web because you won't be able to get through it to him on it. Relatively easy, but when you do stop and have the beauty or the benefits of being able to zoom really close in on it, you see that there's so much going on in these little spiders' lives right now that it is quite interesting to note their interactions and ongoings. The largest one, which is the female, which I must just reiterate, looks to be feeding on this kill now, but I could be wrong. She does seem to be latched onto it though, and she'll be simply sucking out the bodily fluids from that insect. They don't chew through the actual carcass. They'll suck on it until there's no more hemolymph or bodily fluids, and then discard the remaining shell or exoskeleton from the nest, or web rather. Well, they do seem to have calmed down, so we shall continue. I think we got some great action out of this little spider web. Or leopard vocalizing, elephants, or potentially alarm calls from monkeys or any of the other animals that may indicate to us that there could be predators around. Whereas if we're continually driving around, searching, and hoping to find these bigger, more impressive animals that we do need to search for, we may lose out on not only seeing these interesting smaller critters, but also hearing very vital information that could really help us in finding predators. So it is something that I like to try and do as often as possible for a number of reasons: to enjoy the little animals and also to increase our chances of finding some of the bigger ones along the way. So in all likelihood, there's a family of crested francolins that we can see. Very difficult to distinguish between the adults and the youngsters now, but this will be a pair of adults with their offspring. It's phenomenal to watch how quickly animals grow, be it the birds or even some of the mammals. Like I was saying yesterday with the warthog, it's really interesting to see how just in 3 weeks the piglets really have got considerably larger. And the same goes for the wildebeest that we've been monitoring closely. After having seen so many wildebeest births in November and December, we really did follow things closely. So much so that we got to know Brian's mother, a famous wildebeest from these parts. Well, at least she used to be. We saw her give birth, and her calf was named Brian after Brian the cameraman. I think it was yourself and Peter out together. Yeah. They saw that together, and we then watched her raise that calf for a few months until some lions managed to catch it. We didn't see the lions actually catching. Sorry, spiderweb. They're actually quite clumsy when you handle them. So I prefer to just have it. Sorry, not easy for Brian. But we'll just get it off the vehicle because, like I say, they are clumsy when you handle them. So I'll just get it onto a little blade of grass and leave it to do its own business there. Sorry about that, little spider. So, what was I saying? Brian's wildebeest calf. And it was Mark actually who was out on drive. I'm not sure if he was out with VM or Brian. Brian, can you remember? When you found Brian's mum in distress.
Myself and Mark.
Yeah. And they were out and they had some lion tracks and saw some remains of a wildebeest kill. And Brian's mother was in the area, contact calling, trying to find her calf that had been killed by lions. And you could really see the distress on her face. So that was interesting to see. And then only a few months later, she also got killed by a pride of lions. So it's obviously sad when you get to know animals on an individual basis. But it's also interesting, I find, to be able to know such interesting information about what's happened in that animal's life. And it is, of course, nature, as you all know. The lions and the leopard do need to catch prey in order to survive. Some woodlands kingfishers calling up ahead, and for those of you who have been following over the last few months, you may have noticed that you don't hear their call as often as you used to. And it is a call that we certainly will miss when they head off in the coming months. So for those of you who have just joined, I'd like to just recap a little bit. And basically, we'd like to head towards Twin Dams and Treehouse Dam and see if we can find anything of interest along the way. We did hear lions vocalizing to the south of us, which is in the direction of Twin Dams and Treehouse Dam last night when we were sitting around the campfire. So they could well have come further north onto our property. It'll be worth investigating. I can hear Alex and Brent doing a few tests, so that may be good news that they'll be getting out shortly. I can just hear through my earpiece that they seem to be testing a few things, which is great news. Lots of elephant activity through this riverbed. I'll just stop here and Brian will be able to show you all of the tracks coming through this riverbed. It looks like we're heading in the same direction that we are, which is good news. I saw some small tracks on top of the actual elephant tracks and just got out to double check what they were, and they looked to be civet tracks. Now civets are a nocturnal animal that hopefully we'll be seeing because we are spending more time with the spotlights in the evening now that the sun goes down a bit earlier. But what we can read into that is that because a nocturnal animal has moved on top of these elephant tracks, we can assume and guess that the elephants moved here earlier in the evening, therefore it's given the nocturnal animal time to actually pass over on top of those tracks. So that way I can kind of guess that these elephant tracks are from earlier last night than earlier this morning, rather than earlier this morning. And when you are tracking, you do have to factor in many different variables. You know, the weather, the wind, all plays a part in determining how crisp the track may still appear. If there's been rapid or intense changes in temperature, that will cause the little granules of sand to crumble as they expand or contract, and therefore cause the track to be less well defined. Wind will obviously have the same effect. Okay, confirm Brent is up and running. Sorry, the game drive channel just went there, so if you could please repeat. Okay, copy, great. Thank you, Alex. Brent, I'll give you some time to get ready, and then just let me know how things are and when you're ready for a link. Excuse me for a second, the radio's going fairly chaotic, as there are a few game drive vehicles that are asking for updates from me. There are some tiny zebra tracks heading down this road in the opposite direction, but again, just use track of that, because if we do head in the opposite direction a little bit, we can hope to see a really small zebra foal. Well, as I did mention, I probably have the good news that Brent and Andrew are up and heading out and getting ready, finding something interesting, and then we're going to link across to them. Brent's really excited to get out again after his little taster of Safari Live a couple of weeks back, and we're all pretty bored. So it won't be long before you get to see him again, for those of you who've been following closely, or for those of you who are new, to meet Brent. And he's done some really, really interesting adventures throughout Africa in his time. So,
morning everyone, sorry about the delay getting going. Andrew and I had some technical difficulties this morning, and Alex managed to fix them for us, so we're a little bit late getting going, but nice to be back, and I hope everyone enjoys. While Scott's checking the eastern sections of the property, where we had some lions calling last night, I'm going to head down towards the hyena den, see if we can find any action there. So So great to be back in the sands again. Thankfully it was a short sabbatical between my last drives and now. And very excited to be on game drive with everyone this morning. And looking forward to finding you some animals. And as with last time, guys, you're just going to have to bear with me a little bit while I consult the map from time to time, just till I get my bearings and directions and road names 100%. Lots of hyena tracks. Good sign as we head down towards the den. So we're heading down in a dip. We might lose you for a few seconds, but we should be quickly through it.
Small tracks, those hyena tracks.
It's the smaller tracks next to the hyena tracks, the civet. So a little bit overcast this morning, but blue sky is starting to come through. I think it is going to turn into quite a hot day, and I think all our cloud cover is going to burn off. But like the leopards and lions, I'm sure we're going to take advantage of the slightly cooler weather while it's available this morning. Alex just told me that there's a lot of welcome backs, and thanks very, very much, everyone. I'm really excited to be back. We're just heading into the hyena den at the moment, so hopefully there's some action. There's another vehicle in there, so that's a good sign to say that the hyenas are up and awake. So everyone just remember, it's questions at WildEarthTV or hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. Morning, Tim from Arkansas. Tim would like to know whether hyenas will abandon sick or injured pups. Tim, they don't generally, but it's always possible that something like that might happen. But generally, because of the communal den system of hyenas, there is a sort of space for the hyenas to sort of look after sick or injured animals. I know of a reserve to the north of here where there's actually a three-legged hyena, and she's been three-legged since she was a cub, due to, we're not sure how that happened, but so with the communal thing, and also I think it depends a lot on where her ranking is in the social hierarchy, as you know how important the hyenas hierarchies are. Okay, so guys, it doesn't actually look like anyone is up or awake at the moment. What we can do now is we're just going to reposition ourselves a little bit better, that we can possibly have a better look down the hole, and we'll give it a minute or two. Sometimes just the noise of us being around here will bring out the curiosity in the younger animals, and they will come for a little inspection. So quite often the adults won't actually sleep at the den every night. They can basically just sort of bed down for the evening wherever they might stop under a convenient bush. And then sometimes they'll only come back to the den every 2 or 3 days, depending on the age of the cubs and the amount that they need to suckle. It is also possible that they might have moved den sites. They'll have multiple den sites in an area, and what they do is when the fleas and other parasites in the dens get too bad, then they will move to another den site. Copy, thanks. Okay, well, it doesn't look like we're having any action here, so I think we're going to head off and see what else we can find. I'm just going to check in with Scott quickly, see what area he's working, and make a plan from there. Another great thing about having two vehicles is we are able to cover twice the amount of ground, so we have a much better chance of finding more animals. Copy, thanks, Scott. What area are you working now? Okay, Okay, copy. Yeah, I'm gonna head further east, see if we get anything that side. Copy, will do, thanks. Okay, so guys, Scott is moving through the sort of the southern areas towards the western areas. So what we're going to do is head down into the east and check some of those big drainage lines around there, see if we can find any leopard tracks. And as we also said, we heard lions in the night last night calling to the east of us, and hopefully they've managed to make their way onto Djuma. Franklin's scurrying across the road. Always great to be back in the Sabi Sands. It's such a special place, and there's very, very few places where you're able to get game viewing like we do get in the Sabi Sands. We're very, very lucky and privileged to be able to work in this area. Guys, please don't forget to send in your questions to questions@WildEarthTV or hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. Been some ellies here overnight. Looks like quite early in the evening. And you can see there's tracks of doves and insects over the tracks of the ellies. So here, as we're coming down towards the drainage line, this is a drainage line that runs from Vuurtele Dam or Gari Dam, and probably one of the more successful areas for looking for leopards on Djuma. So what we can do is we're just going to head down the western side of the drainage line, see if we find any tracks. There's lions and leopards are really like using roads as paths, and a lot of your game drive roads have been put into areas where there originally were game paths. So that's why they're in these areas, so it's to increase our chances of being able to find animals. Copy that. I'll hand over. I'll close off and hand over now. And so guys, Scott's got something, so we're gonna cut over to him. Probably far more interesting than just watching me drive around. So over to Scott.
Welcome back, and myself and Brian have just been saying how wonderful it is that we've got both vehicles up and running again, because we can chop and change between the two vehicles, thus bringing you twice as much content than we would originally be able to. So really enjoying this, and I hope you enjoyed seeing Brent, and for those of you who are new, meeting Brent for the first time. We're here at Treehouse Dam, and it's a dam that has provided us with so much great viewing over the last few months. And a lot of the time there are buffalo here, and along with the buffalo come these beautiful red-billed oxpeckers. As you'll notice, this one's hopping around looking for ticks, which are ectoparasites that suck the blood from these buffalo as well as a lot of the other mammals out here. And without these birds helping to groom them, a lot of the animals would have a lot of problems from these ectoparasites. An adult oxpecker can eat between 100 and 200 fully grown ticks every day. So that gives you an idea of the help that they are providing the herbivores with. These are all old bills that we'll be looking at. You can almost safely assume when you see a small herd of buffalo, anything less than, I'd say, 20 within this area, you can almost safely assume that they are only males. The larger herds of females and their young in this area tend to at least be 40 to 50 animals. But these older men have decided to join together for safety purposes and company, I guess. They're not fully retired and will certainly link up with breeding herds when the time is right for mating opportunities. But for these old boys to be following the herd permanently would require a little bit too much movement. With the large herd of buffalo, they need to cover great distances, moving often away from lion, who will trail herds, knowing that there are young and old and weak animals within the herd that they can try and prey on, as well as searching for enough food for all those hungry mouths, whereas the older bulls can afford to travel smaller distances because they've got less mouths to feed. And speaking of feeding, as you can see, this bull that we're looking at now he's just swallowed, and another bolus has just popped into his mouth, another bolus of cud. So let's watch closely, and you'll notice that he'll chew this for about 30 seconds or so, and then you'll notice him pause and break and swallow, and then wait for the next bolus of cud to be regurgitated up from some of the first chambers of the stomach, their four-chambered stomach. And this ensures that they really do process whatever they feed effectively, and their dung comes out a fine texture, unlike that of an elephant whose dung looks just as it did almost when it passed through the mouth. The digestive system isn't nearly as effective as the animals with four-chambered stomachs that ruminate. Looks like he's about to finish. There you go, he's just swallowed that mouthful, and then we can wait for that. There's the next mouthful. Just got a question through on Twitter asking the approximate age of these animals. It's difficult to say. There'll be a wide variety between all of the bulls that we can see here, but I would say anywhere from kind of 15 to 25 years of age would be the rough age of these older bulls. They've got about a 25 to 30 year lifespan roughly. But some will certainly be older than others. It's so difficult to guess the age of these animals accurately. The only way to be sure is to actually know when they were born, and with animals like buffalo, we sadly don't really keep track of their lives to the degree that we do with the lion and the leopard, for example. There's just too many of them to keep track of, I guess, whereas with animals like lion and leopard that are more rare, we can follow them a little bit more closely. I'm just going to try and chat on the radio. The guys have been trying to get a hold of us, and we don't seem to be transmitting very well, so excuse me for a second. Craig, can you copy me? Craig. One last try. Craig for Scots. Craig for Scots.
I'm on 5-4.
Did you copy that, Alex? He's on 5-4. Okay, folks, we will carry on. Apologies for that. A little break in attention from you guys, but I did need to try my best to respond to Craig, who is either wanting to give us an update, or I'm guessing, like yesterday, he was wanting, hopefully, to hear some good news from us. But we don't have any major updates for him at this stage, so I'm glad the radio isn't working well now, because at least we don't have something that we would like to share with him, because that wouldn't be a good situation to be in. It really is vital, the teamwork between the different guides. Just got a question coming through asking why we don't see many large herds of buffalo with the females and their youngsters at any of these dams. And they will certainly spend time wallowing at dams and drinking at dams, just like these bulls do. Maybe less time relaxing than the bulls, but they certainly will spend a lot of time at dams to drink and wallow in the mud. and keep cool. But they sadly haven't been spending much time on our property over the last few months, and that could change as we go into winter. Like I did say, the large herds of buffalo move really big distances, and have spent a little bit of time here over the past few months, but we certainly haven't had as many sightings as we would have liked to. Something to bear in mind is that we've got a very, very small traversing area. Our broadcast signal only allows us to go so far, and we've got access to we've got access to 3,000, but where we can actually broadcast from is probably actually only 1,500 hectares, which is a very small area relative to what most guides would be. Most guides in this area would have access to, depending on the lodge you work for and how much land they would have anywhere between 5,000 and 15,000 hectares to be able to search for animals, which obviously makes their lives easier because they've got more places to look. But like I say, we are a little bit limited by the fact that we don't have a very large area that we can search for, and that limits us in being able to show you certain animals like buffalo that do move very large distances. They can pass through our property in an evening without us seeing them. Apologies, I really just want to try and get an update from the Game Drive channel. I hear that they have found tracks of a predator of sorts, and I'm just trying to establish exactly what they are so I can let Brent know. Craig for Scots. It's interesting, the radio did work yesterday, the first time I did try and speak to Craig, the Game Drive channel. But since then it hasn't been working, which is something we will obviously have to rectify. Okay, now there's some birds calling, and listen to them, and the first person to send the correct answer through, will be the winner of this competition. There's actually two major birds, that you can hear, one of which is one that we saw earlier, which has got a very distinctive call, and another one's got a louder shriek. So put through your guesses and suggestions. I'll carry on, that's long enough for the test. So two different birds you can mainly hear calling there, and I would be interested to see who was paying attention earlier and over the past few drives. So Alex in the final control will no doubt let me know who sent through the suggestions of different birds that they may have heard. There's still one calling. That was the one that I was hoping somebody would be able to identify. Well done. Brown-headed parrot is one. So well done to whoever got that. Who was that from, Alex? Okay, well, Linda and Arlene, well done to you two. You got the emails in first. But I think Arlene takes the cake because she gave the full name, brown-headed parrot, whereas Linda, I think, just said it was a parrot. But both are correct. And has anyone sent through another bird call? Because there was another one that I was hoping people were going to pick up on that we did hear calling a little bit earlier on the drive. Okay, and we've just got one through from Safari, black-headed oriole, so that's the other bird that we could hear calling, and well done to Safari for getting that right. And Brian, in the meantime, has found some grey hornbills. So, less bright coloration, especially on the beak, than the yellow-billed and red-billed hornbills that we do find in this area. But they still are comical and great to watch. I've got a very nice call. The southern grey hornbill, also quite different to the red-billed and yellow-billed. It's more of a whistling. Good. Well done to the birders, and for those of you who are not birders, it is worth opening your mind up to the benefits of bird watching, because when you are out here in the wilderness, you cannot rely on simply the big mammals and the stars of the show, because they tend to be seen a lot less frequently than a few other animals like the birds. You are equally interesting and often beautiful. Listen to these ones going for it. So you can hear these ones calling now that are kind of in front of us, and when they stop, I'm guessing the ones to the right might fire up again. Come on. Okay, I just want to try and get you a visual of these birds. They make such a funny movement when they're doing their call. They're green woodhoopers. Really pretty birds, and I actually haven't managed to show you. Oh, here we go. We've got a good gap with the ones on the right there, Brian. Hopefully they won't fly. So they're known as the red-billed woodhooper or green woodhooper. And there's two different families that are having a kind of singing competition here. I'm glad you got to see this. I'm just going to creep forward and see if we can find the next family, because I'd love you to see them calling. They whip their tails up and down in the air as they call, and it really does look interesting. Where are they hiding? Oh, right on the other side of the bush there, but Brian's already spotted them. Let's just be patient. They may hop into view and then call again. Oh, just a few more branches up would be great for us. Almost there. Oh. It just about got into view and then flew off, but I'm glad you got to see them and also hear them calling. Their Zulu name, which is one of the local African languages, is the Flega Bafazi, which means cackling or laughing sisters. And I guess you can hear why they've been given that name. a lot of the African cultures really do have such great descriptive names for a lot of the animals regarding the noises they make or the appearance they have. Brent, how are you doing out there, buddy? Okay, copy. Well, that sounds good. I'm not sure if you've seen the other game drive vehicles, but if you do, just let them know that I can hear their transmissions, but they don't seem to be copying me. You can just apologize from us for that. Okay, perfect. Good for now, but maybe when you find something of interest, we'll come back to you. So something that really is difficult when starting working in a new area is familiarizing yourself with the roads and all the dams and places of interest. So it is something to bear in mind for Brent that he does have a lot of pressure on him, just wondering where he is and what's going on, because like I said, there's a lot of roads out here and a lot of the places look quite similar. So he's out familiarizing himself with the property, which I'm sure won't take him very long. He's just getting to grips with that, and his plan is to head out towards Buffelshoek Dam. He's kind of in the eastern and northern part of the property at the moment. And that's his plan, just to keep you in the loop. Whereas we're in the kind of southwestern corner of the property. So that was our plan this morning when we chatted about what to do, is to try and cover different areas that way, increasing the likelihood of finding some animals. The only time where it would be useful for us to both be in the same area is if, for example, we manage to find tracks of an animal like a leopard, and that way we both converge onto that area and start searching as best we can to find it. Just going to jump out here and have a look for any tracks. There was a bird of prey that just flew off there with a kill, but that's how it goes. Sadly we didn't see it, but that's how it goes. Like most things in life, I guess, there's positives and negatives to any situation you find yourself in. And one of the negative scenarios we find when the weather is overcast is that it does make tracking more difficult. And the reason being is that without sunlight casting shadows onto tracks or illuminating tracks clearly, especially in the early morning and late afternoon when the sun's coming in at an angle, it makes it really difficult to see the actual depressions in the sand. So you do have to look really closely, and that's why I decided to do quite a big loop just to ensure that I covered enough ground to make sure I didn't miss out on any tracks. So although we're enjoying a cool morning weather-wise, it is making tracking a little bit more difficult. Copy that, well done, Brent. I did hear guys talking about tracks on Central Road. I didn't know, I couldn't copy whether they were lion or leopard and which direction they were heading in. But that's good news. Okay, copy. Well done. So this is quite an interesting situation that we can see here. You'll notice there's a lot of mud on these branches and leaves, and it continues all the way out over this large fruited bush willow branch. And what I'm guessing happened is that an elephant came and potentially walked directly over this branch with legs on either side of it, and this would have been rubbing between the elephant's legs as it passed over, thus leaving all of the mud over here. So it would have been a really good scratch, and you can imagine an elephant's stomach probably sits at this height, so it would have walked over and got a really good belly scratch, and also bend this tree over as it passed over. So interesting to see how the animals use the vegetation to aid in scratching themselves and grooming themselves. Brent has found some tracks of a pride of lion. He's not entirely sure of where he is. And as I mentioned earlier, it is difficult to get your bearings out here. So he's just trying to establish exactly what's going on, where he is, and thereafter he'll be able to give me an update. But I will be able to head into the general direction and give him a hand in looking for those animals. But the good news is that he's found some tracks of lion, and it doesn't really matter that he doesn't know where he is. It's more important that he knows how to track lion, and he'll be able to hopefully find them, and he doesn't need to know where he is in order to broadcast. So like I say, that's not a concern, and we'll be able to just head into that general area and give him a hand in the search for the lion. The other nice thing about having two vehicles is that when, sorry, there's just a radio transmission coming through there, is that when one of the vehicles does find a set of tracks like Brent with the lion now, we can stay on me, he can focus on doing his job and trying to find those lines, which will require a lot of concentration, a lot of getting on and off the vehicle to establish where the tracks have gone, which is difficult to do when you are live and you want to try and give as much attention to the viewers as possible, but it can be difficult when you're concentrating on tracking. So we can leave Brent in peace now until he finds the lion, and once he does, then he'll have his turn to broadcast. Okay, copy, Brent. Well, I'll maybe come into that general area and give you a hand, but you can carry on snooping about there. Okay, copy, perfect. Oh, okay. You ready there, Uncle Brian? So we've just seen a woodlands kingfisher dart down in the water, into the water to have a shower. It's not fishing like the pied kingfisher that we saw yesterday. It's simply flying into the water for bathing purposes. And what we've noticed is that they often plummet into the water about 4 or 5 times per shower. So, here we go. Oh. Well done, Brian. So we obviously got lucky. We just saw it popping in earlier. We're not obviously sure how many times it has plopped into the water. But typically, like I said, it's about 4 or 5. So we may get lucky and see it plummet in a few more times. What a way to shower. It'll be interesting to know how many times they do it daily. Possibly once in the morning, once in the evening. But hard to say. We have noticed, though, that they can do it at any time of day. I guess it just depends on how the individual's feeling. Well done there, Brian. And I think that is the end of the show. Considering the perch it flew back to, looks like now it's going to continue with the finer grooming now that it's sufficiently saturated. Copy that. So, Brent's also found some leopard tracks in the area that he temporarily went and followed up on, but they did cross out of our property. So, just keeping you updated on him and his movements. He's now going to return to the lion tracks and see if he doesn't have any more luck there. We are quite a way off from where he is now. So it will take us a while to get into his general area, but that's not a problem. There's no rush out here in Africa. Not unless you unnecessarily cause yourself to be in a rush, but we try to avoid that. This is the first tree squirrel that I've seen since I've been back. Sadly, it was too fast for us this time, but it is always worth trying to show you these little animals that sometimes perch themselves up perfectly for a few seconds. But no luck today. They really are cute, the tree squirrels. this one. That's going to sit for us. You got in the gap there, Brian. Well, that didn't take us long. There's actually 2 squirrels in this tree, but look at how cute that one is. I'm not sure exactly what it's feeding on. Just going to try and get my binoculars and have a closer look. I don't know if the lighting, but silhouetted up there, that's actually feeding on the fruits of the marula. It's either doing that or it's simply removing all of the flesh. Yeah, that's what it's doing. It's removing the fruity flesh which surrounds the really hard to open nuts or seed, within which there's a really tasty nut, and that's what they are the professionals at getting into these marula seeds. I think I actually just hit that one that we were watching jump down from the tree, and I think it actually dropped the marula that it was busy processing. Oh, well, now we can have a close look at the exact same marula that we saw that squirrel feeding on. So, as you can see, here's the fruity layer of fruity flesh that surrounds this seed within the marula, and within the seed there's most often 2 little chambers that hold a long and thin nut, really rich and oily nut that's very difficult to get to, but the squirrels have mastered the art of getting to that little nut. It's a pity they're not bigger, because if they were and also easier to get into, we as humans would certainly be cashing into on them. Now, interestingly, we've seen the squirrels now having to do this kind of hard labor getting the flesh of the fruit off in order to be able to access the nut within the seed. But sometimes what you'll also do is you'll find them rummaging through elephant droppings, and once the marula's passed through an elephant, it's partially digested. The fruity flesh is often still on the actual seed, but what it does mean is that it's certainly a lot easier to remove that flesh from the seed or nuts. Interesting. We'll put it back here. Maybe it had planned on coming and collecting it later, so we will leave it where we found it in order to not mess up any later snack plans that squirrel may have had. Okay, which way should we go from here? Okay, copy, thanks. As soon as he's ready, I'm happy for a link, but if he's still up, finding his feet and working out where he is, that's also not a problem. Just let me know if we can pass that on to him. Okay, copy. I'll give you a link shortly. Well, Brent has been missing you guys, so we're going to link back to him and get an update on how he's been. So over to Brent, and we'll catch up with you a little bit later. See if we can get a camera on that.
Hi guys, welcome back. Whoops. So while you guys have been with Scott, Andrew and I have headed towards the east of the area. We found tracks of a pride of lions heading into Djuma. So at the moment we're busy following up on those tracks, and the female tracks cut into the block probably about 600 meters up the road, and now we've got a male track that's just joined in here as well, heading down this road, which I think is let's work this out, cheater. Central Road, no, Hippo Pools Road. So hopefully we can find them. It doesn't look like they've crossed out anywhere to the west and to the north. Scott and I were both in that area this morning, and there were no tracks there. So we're going to keep on the tracks. I'm not sure which part of Lions this is. Hopefully once we find them we can try and figure out who it is. It looks like there's a lioness with this male as well. So we have two sets of tracks here. So Andrew, keep your eyes peeled. Hopefully they haven't gone too far. And remember guys, questions. If you have any questions for me, please send your questions to questions@WildEarthTV or #SafariLive on Twitter. As you can see, I've been practicing, so I can actually say questions at WildEarthTV without having a slip up today. So you can just see we've still got tracks in the road. Good morning, Brenda. Brenda has got a question for me, and she would like to know what my opinion on zoos is. Well, Brenda, in certain places, zoos are sort of a necessary evil, but I truly believe if you really like animals, you don't put them in a cage. But with certain species that are under threat and whatnot and need breeding programs and that, I can see the use for them. But in terms of your sort of roadside attraction zoos, and basically tourist traps, I'm not a very big fan, and that the animals don't have the best quality of life. Just make sure the lions didn't go down here. Okay. Ah, there we go. There's the tracks there. Let's see if the male's joined up with the other tracks that we had coming from the other side. Good morning, Marianne. You are asking whether squirrels stock up on food here. Well, our winters in the lowvelds are very, very mild compared to your northern hemisphere winters. So the squirrels will actually forage throughout the year rather than stocking up like your northern hemisphere squirrels. Okay, so guys, the lion tracks are still continuing down this road. I'm just going to try to work it out where it is so I can let Scott know so you can check from the other side. Scott coming. The track's heading north from Quarry Pan. Yeah, those tracks do sound quite similar to that, but I'll keep following them for now. Let's see if we find anything. So there's been a report to the west of us that some other lions have been found, but these tracks, I'm sorry, to the east of us, but there are multiple groups of lions in the area, so it's quite possible that these tracks belong to a separate pride. We still got tracks. Oh, here comes the sun. Burning off all that morning cloud. And feel the temperature rise almost immediately. And no more tracks. So what we're going to do is we're going to carry on this road, we're going to loop to check the next road, see if there are any tracks across there, and slowly eliminate where the lions could be. So when it comes to tracking, a lot of tracking is, rather than following the tracks completely from start to finish, you have to learn how to think like an animal to a degree. So if I was a lion, where would I go? And you try second guess their next move. It also saves you a lot of time while you're tracking, and gives you a chance to find the animals faster. If that fails, you can always go back and do individual tracks from the beginning through to the end. But that is a very time-consuming process, and you normally have to do quite a lot of walking for that. So that's only last resort. That's the next road. Bouncy. For me personally, one of my favorite things is tracking the cats, the lion and leopard. It's a different kind of rush if you get to follow up animals and find them yourself. You don't sort of respond to a sighting if you get the chance to follow fresh tracks and find your own animals. You also get bragging rights. Oh shit. So guys, you seem very quiet this morning. Where are all the questions? Remember, questions at WildEarthTV or hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. Sorry, go again, I didn't read that. Morning, Kevin from Boston. Kevin would like to know whether animals like spicy foods. Just an interesting question. I haven't quite heard one like that one before. But generally, no, they don't like spicy foods. In areas where you have human-elephant conflict and things like that, chilies are actually planted around the other sort of maize or corn and the other plantations to actually keep the elephants away. So I think, no, the animals are not really fond of spicy food. Okay, we're on Inyala Road now. Try to see if the lions, because it looks like they went into this block here and came across. Let's see if we can find their tracks coming out. Buffalo running here, but no lion tracks. Morning, Sinead. Welcome on Drive this morning. Nice to have you here with us. Sinead would like to know who is the main person who taught me to track, or is there a special person that I learned tracking from? And Sinead, I've been very, very fortunate in where I've grown up, and I've had many incredible and unbelievable teachers over the years, but probably the most important teachers for me was when I was still a teenager in Botswana. We had a half San, half Indebele guy who worked as a tracker for us, whose name was David. And I was very, very lucky to spend a lot of time in my teenage years just with him tracking animals. And then after that, two other trackers especially taught me a lot. One I worked with in the Kruger National Park. His name was Glass Maramani, and he literally could think like an animal. And then another tracker who actually worked with me in the Sabi Sands, who'd been tracking for 30 years, by the name of Simon Matabula. Those three guys and my dad are probably the people who've taught me the most about tracking and how to sort of predict or think like animals. Okay. So, dam over here we're going to have a quick look at. Quite possible the lions would have got a bit thirsty. Good morning, Terry from California. Terry would like to know if you can tell the difference between male and female lion tracks. And to answer you, Terry, you can. The male tracks are significantly larger. What I'll try to do is find some tracks where we can see the difference. But we've just arrived here at what I think is Buffalo's Hook Dam. And we've got a nice raft of hippo and a lone buffalo bull. And just judging by the buffalo and that, I don't think the lions came through this way. And if they did, they probably came through quite a lot earlier in the evening. So what we'll do is we're going to keep tracking the lions for now while the tracks are still fresh and it's still a little bit cooler and they might start moving. If we don't come right there, we'll come back to the hippos and the buffalo a little bit later. No, we do have a lion track here. So they must have come through here much earlier in the night. Let's have a look there, Andrew. See there. It's a male lion track. It's not the clearest one, so I can't put it through. So go again with the name there, Alex. So confirm Vera. Good morning, Vera from Ohio. Vera would like to know whether on a walking safari, if an animal comes up to you, do you stand still? Do you try to chase it away? Vera, to answer that question, it completely depends on the situation, and every situation will be different. But generally the most important thing that you get taught in the bush is whatever you do, don't run. So standing still is always the first choice, and now then it depends what you do depending. Quite often, if you do get sort of a warning charge, I don't like to use the word mock charge. There's no real such real thing as a mock charge. All charges are serious, so I would say a warning charge is a better idea. Depending on how close the animal comes up to you, there are different things you can do. You can stand still if you feel that's the right option. Quite often, if you just clap your hands and shout a little bit, occasionally in quite thick stuff when tracking lions, I'll pick up a stick or a rock and I might throw that in their general direction. But as long as you don't run and you keep still, shout, scream, and then once you've assessed the situation and you can move back slowly away from the animal, or the animal will sometimes come, rush in, charge, and then run away completely. Okay, good. We still got tracks here, so we're definitely on the right track, and we had some nice time not having to follow the tracks through that thick bush there. One thing that worries me a little is the tracks are heading off towards our boundary, but hopefully they turn north again. Oh, some Inyala. I got it. You got it? There we go. Sue, good morning, Sue from Wisconsin. Welcome on Drive this morning. Sue from Wisconsin would like to know if I'm doing a bit more research on wild dogs. Oh, there's a big bump. Oh, this is interesting. We've got leopard tracks here as well. I don't know if you can see them there, Andrew. Sorry, Sue, I'll get to your question in a second. You got it there. Just beyond the hippo footprint is the clearest one, I think. There we go. So there's a male leopard's also been in this area. The lion tracks continue that way, but they are still from last night. We can see how crisp that leopard track is. That is from this morning. We're going to have a quick look there, and then we'll come back to the lion tracks. Sue, I haven't actually, since I was last, been doing any research on the wild dogs. I was quite lucky to see wild dogs while I was away, while I was visiting my parents. But no, I haven't been doing any more research on wild dogs. The last sort of formal research I was involved with wild dogs was in Botswana, apart from occasionally helping EWT, which is the Endangered Wildlife Trust. A friend of mine runs the wild dog program for this area. So guys, I'm going to be away from you for just a second. I'm just going to jump out of the car to check the tracks quickly. Yeah. Oh yeah. Unfortunately, it looks like the male leopard has crossed our boundary, so we're gonna head north and see if we can pick up the lion tracks again. but unfortunately it's not looking very good because we're right up against the boundary of our concession area. They're not playing game today. Okay. And those male leopard tracks were really nice and fresh. That's really disappointing. Good morning, Trent, all the way from Fiji. Thanks for joining us this morning. Trent would like to know, how do the prey animals sleep without being attacked by other animals? Well, they don't really sleep like we do, apart from the primates. They sort of rest. They'll lie down, and because a lot of the prey species are ruminants, they'll keep chewing the cud. So they don't sleep in the sort of traditional sense that they do, where some animals can, like elephants, especially younger elephants and that, but it is very unusual for an animal to sleep completely out, apart from sort of monkeys and baboons, and your other nocturnal animals that go into dens and at night. But they are still very aware. I mean, even though they are resting, their senses are still functioning, their hearing, their smell, so they can react to in case a predator comes. Guys, I've got some bad news. The lion tracks have also crossed out of our area and into Buffalo's Hook. So what we're going to do, we're not far from the dam where the hippo and the lone buffalo bull were. So we'll go have a quick squiz at them. Scott going? Scott, 2 copies. No problem. Tracks crossed into Buffalo's Hook, as well as another set of male leopard tracks, which also crossed into Buffalo's Hook. Oh, thanks. I'm going to head back to Buffalo's Hook and go look at some hippos. Good morning, Virginia from Kentucky. Welcome on Drive this morning. Virginia would like to know whether the big cats get feline leukemia like domestic cats. I would assume it is possible for them to get leukemia, but in the wild, it would never become noticeable. They'd probably be killed by another predator before the sort of symptoms became very obvious that it was leukemia. Out here, it's a bit more difficult, and the lifespans are not as long as sort of a domestic animal or an animal in captivity. I'm sure possibly in zoos or lion parks, the animals will get things like cancer and leukemia and cataracts in their eyes, but in the wild, we don't really get to see that stuff, or even by the time it's sort of affecting them, they're already losing a lot of condition, and they will be under pressure from either members of the same species or from, very nice, waterbuck drinking as well, or from other predators that will be putting pressure on them. we're just coming around this side of the dam so we get the sun behind us, so we get nice light on the hippopotami. There we go. Nice big raft of hippo. Let's have a quick look around. Just give me a second, I'm just making sure there's nothing else we might have missed. Got lots of woodlands kingfishers calling. Some blacksmith lapwings. Okay. So the reason we knew those leopard tracks must have been quite fresh, the ones we've just stopped following now, is because they were on top of all the hippo tracks. And so the hippos would have come back from their nightly foraging early this morning. So it means that puts that leopard in the last sort of couple of hours that he would have walked past this area. After the hippos were already home. There's a little pied kingfisher as well on the torchwood tree right next to us, having a look for his breakfast. Cool. So we've got two different types of kingfishers around here at the moment. Quite interesting that they have completely different feeding strategies. So pied kingfisher is very much a pescivore, or fish eater. Although he will eat frogs and aquatic insects, whether a woodlands kingfisher is far much more of an insectivore. So even though they're related, and a lot of kingfishers out here don't eat fish at all, we probably have more insectivorous kingfishers than we have pescivorian kingfishers. Who's on the back of it? So guys, please remember your questions to hashtag Safari Live or questions at WildEarthTV. Got in. Good morning, Bob from Iowa. Welcome on Drive with us this morning. Bob would like to know whether I've seen any of the prides of lions that possibly occur on Djuma. The majority of which I haven't, Bob, but there is one pride called the Styx pride, which do come up here that I used to see from time to time when I worked in the southern Sabi Sands. And although I'm quite sure that was a long time ago, none of those actual individuals are still alive. It'll be their offspring. So sort of familiar with the Styx pride. Not 100% sure of their makeup at the moment. Oh, the mackerel doves flying over. Oh, and the old buffalo bull decided to stretch his legs a bit. See what he's doing, he's actually seen something and he's not quite sure what it is. We can't really see it well from here, but it's there's some waterbuck that he's sort of giving the evil eye to at the moment. I always say when you look at a buffalo bull, he always looks at you like you owe him money. So I've got a question for all you guys out there. Who can tell me how long a hippo can hold its breath for? And remember, your answers to questions at WildEarth.tv or on Twitter, hashtag Safari Live. Yeah, the blacksmith lapwings making a big racket. one of the reasons, where they gone now? Oh, we can't see them. Sorry, I copied you 2 out of 5. Can you go again? Good morning, Lloyd from Buffalo, New York. Lloyd would like to know, what is the makeup of the hippos in the dam, ratios of males to females? Here, there will only be one dominant male in such a small dam, and the rest will be females and sub-adults. The only males he will tolerate close to him are sub-adult males. As soon as they get a bit older, he will chase them away from this little dam, and that's why you often find single hippo especially in smaller dams that can't have a lot of females in that, and those are your sort of teenagers that have been chased away from the main raft, and they will only start once they've grown a bit bigger, and that they'll come back to these places where there are a lot of females to challenge the dominant male of the raft for sort of breeding rights and his spot at the top. It's one of the ways, like with a lot of animals, they ensure genetic variation, so you don't end up mating with your mom or your sister. So that's why males are so aggressive towards younger males when they get to sort of an age when they can start breeding and chase them away. Quite a nice photo. Sorry guys if you hear the clicks in the background, it's me on my camera. Well, Chris and Teresa both got it right. Another interesting thing about the hippopotami is that they're actually... Sorry guys, there are a lot of you guys who got it right, but we're just going to mention the first two for now. Another thing about the hippos is that a very interesting thing is that they can't actually swim. They run along the bottom over the deep areas, and the younger individuals will actually sort of hitchhike on their mom's back so they can stay in an area where they have access to oxygen. Scott coming? You got anything your side? Okay, cool. I'll link back to you in a minute. Okay guys, we've got some news from Scott. He's busy tracking some cats on the other side of the reserve, so we're going to link back to him while he's in the tracking process, and hopefully he can find them for you. We've been a bit unlucky in the east, so maybe it's the west side today.
I have a question before we leave.
No problem.
Is it possible to tell from looking here which hippo is the male? If I had to guess, I'll say that big one out the water on the left, but is there any way to actually...
I haven't looked quite closely, it is, but if you look at the size of the male's head, it's the male's head is much, much bigger. I can't really see. I would actually say probably on the right, far right. Let me just have a quick look through there. Yeah. Yep. So the one in the main group on the far right looks like a decent sized male. There's that. The one just off to the right by himself. Okay.
This guy or the one further right?
In the middle. Okay. So guys, we're going to send you off to Scott now. Hopefully you can find those cats in the west.
Welcome back, and as you can see, I've out the vehicle. I've just walked down this road to see if we could see any more lion tracks. We found tracks of what look like two big male lion just behind us, heading in a southerly direction, and we did drive along this road in a northerly direction until we found the tracks. So when that happens, it means you've kind of already checked the area where the tracks are heading towards, but obviously they could have veered off to the left or the right of the road at any stage. Now, we've established that they haven't come this far, so about 100 meters further back is where we had their last tracks. So we'll head back there and continue working this area. It's a bit of a tricky area to work for tracks because there aren't very many roads. So you get some areas where the road network is quite dense, and for tracking purposes it makes it a lot easier because the roads are the best places to check for tracks. So if the tracks do veer off into a block, you can loop around and check one of the other roads to see if they've come out. Whereas here, this is a very big block to our left, and to our right our boundary is quite close. So not the ideal area, but the good news is that we have got lion tracks. So a much greater chance of actually finding something when you do have their tracks to follow. Sorry, Brian, I haven't chosen the best spot to turn around here. Bit of a roller coaster. Oof. It's easy to forget when being in the driver's seat, which is a lot more comfortable and sturdy than back where Brian's sitting, and you also have the steering wheel to hold on to. So it's important to bear in mind that we do have some important cargo, being Brian and his equipment on the back.
Make sure the seatbelts are fastened.
Yeah, Brian's got a seatbelt on though, which is good. He's always abides by the laws out here. So we also went down and checked an old hyena den site, which is just down this road to the right here. And I think the lion may actually have headed down that same road. So I'm just going to check carefully and see if we can confirm that. I'll just be off the vehicle again for a second. Sadly, no luck. What we'll do is we'll loop around another road that does hit us in the same kind of general direction that the lions were heading down. So I'm hoping the lion headed more east into our property, so south and east, that way making the likelihood of finding them a little bit better, if not this morning, potentially this afternoon. Whereas if they headed east, they could well have crossed into a bordering property that we can't get to. Been a lot of elephant tracks around this morning, so I wouldn't be hugely surprised if we bumped into a herd, because there have been a lot of tracks moving about, which is a good sign, because with elephants they aren't always necessarily on the property. They move very big distances in search of food, and they aren't bound by a territory. So it's good to see that there have been a lot of elephant passing through the area at the moment, because it does change on a kind of weekly to monthly basis. Brian's just gonna, I can do it actually. Alex just noticed there was some spider webbing on the lens, but I think that should do it. How's that looking, Alex? There we go. Where are these lions hiding? I understand you've been viewing some of the hippos at Buffelshoek Dam with Brent, and really happy that there's a decent pot of hippos there now, and great for our viewing. So I'm just going to answer a question that Katrina's just sent through, also regarding hippo. And she said, morning Katrina, she said that she has once watched a documentary, and on that documentary it said that the hippo will eat their they're dead. I'm not sure if it's dead young or any animal in the pod that dies, and I highly doubt that. I have seen footage of a hippo chewing, but it's an inquisitive chew onto a dead zebra once that had been killed by a lion, and I have heard of them chewing and mouthing other dead hippos, but they're not actually feeding on it, they're just biting it out of curiosity. They don't actually consume any dead animals that I'm aware of, so I think that could have been false information on the documentary. Look, strange things always do happen in nature, and potentially once a hippo has eaten a piece of meat, but it's highly unlikely. They're herbivores that eat a diet just strictly of just grass. So I sadly believe that that documentary misled you, Katrina, because, yeah, like I say, they are highly unlikely to eat any meat, let alone meat of their own species. I'm going to leave the area of these lion tracks simply because I've driven all of the roads in that area and haven't come up with anything, but we will bear in mind that they could be in one of these blocks, so this evening it would be worth maybe looping around this area, but to continue searching there now, I can't help but feel will be fruitless. So we will abandon those tracks, but certainly remember that they pass through that area because they could well be lurking about somewhere. Got a question come through. There was no name attached, so I can't address the individual, but you'll know who you are. And basically somebody's just asked, how did the road network in this area come to be? Were they previously animal trails, or who decided where exactly to build the roads? And that would have, it wouldn't have been game trails. It would have simply been the landowners many years ago deciding which areas to build roads in. There are areas along riverbeds that are natural highways for animals and kind of useful places to build roads. So it would have just been the landowners over the years deciding where the best places would be to put in the roads, and it's just personal opinion, I guess, and ideas as to where exactly to build roads. But I mean, we've just driven past an area where it's not an official road, but it's a kind of what we would term a two-track, so we can drive the vehicle through there if need be, and it's an area that over the last few months a lot of leopard have been moving through. So rather than driving on different tracks all the time, we kind of worked out one pathway that we could drive through, cleared a few fallen down trees out the way, and that way we could link between this road and the next major road that runs parallel to it without having to go all the way around. And I guess that is also a way that roads do become established. If we continue to drive that road a lot, it would become a lot more prominent. The vegetation also determines whether or not people would be likely to build roads in certain areas. If it's very, very thick, it may be difficult to clear the pathway to build the road, and then also not a very productive area to drive. And there are one or two of those roads on the property, Hyena Road comes to mind, which is a road that takes you through some really thick vegetation in quite an unproductive area. I'm sure animals will use it and pass through there, but in general it doesn't seem to provide us with much good game viewing. So it's a road that we don't travel very often, and in hindsight doesn't really make much sense to us. But there's only one way to establish that, I guess, in the beginning, and that is to build the road and then be able to explore that area and see whether it's productive or not. A lot also depends on what you're trying to achieve from any given area. If you strictly want game viewing from a vehicle, then a high road network is useful because it allows you to cover more ground and get to more places in the vehicle. Whereas if you enjoy doing walking safaris, you'd prefer to have less roads, because you don't want to be seeing any roads when you're on a walking safari. You want to be seeing as little man-made structural evidence of man being there as possible. So that's also a contributing factor that may lead a landowner to either build lots of roads or build less roads, which give you larger tracts of land to explore on foot without having to come across a road. And that's why the Sabi Sands, for example, would not be considered an ultimate safari, walking safari destination, because there is a high road density. There is a high road density in this area, which detracts from the walking experience, but certainly promotes the game drive experience from a vehicle. Copy that, no problem. So this morning has proved a little bit difficult with finding animals, and be that animals, not only the big ones but even the small ones. You know, you have some drives where the animals present themselves, and when I say animals, I'm also referring to the small animals, even birds and squirrels, allowing for a continual flow of contents or animals to look at. Whereas this morning has been a little bit more tricky, and that's how it goes out here, and it does make the more exciting drives, the more action-packed drives, more entertaining. So it is something to bear in mind, especially for the newcomers, that you do have some drives that are less productive than others. Myself and Brian did stop by the hyena den site as well a little bit after Brent, hoping to see some action there, but nothing had changed. There was nobody home. Woodlands kingfishers are really making a racket here, so let's see if we can try and show you them calling. Oh, it's just taken off. really is phenomenal how many tracks of hyena you see on most of the roads you drive down. They cover huge distances searching for any potential meals. And they will hunt, even in this area where they're not really notorious for hunting. They do rely a lot on scavenging in the Sabi sands, and scavenging almost entirely from leopard. Because there is a high density of leopard in this area, sadly not this morning, but in general there's a high density of leopard in this area, and that allows the hyena to specialize in feeding on or stealing from leopard. Whereas in other areas where leopard densities may be lower and lion densities may be higher, the hyena have therefore specialized in stealing from the lion. But on the same breath, in some areas the hyena have also established that they are great hunters when they need to be. And there was research done that proved lion were actually stealing more from hyena in the Ngorongoro crater in Tanzania than the hyena from the lion, which is important to know, because lion, leopard and hyena will all steal from one another, and even cheetah. Copy, great news. So Brent's just come through on the radio saying that he's bumped into a vehicle that's had a brief glimpse of a leopard, so they're going to try and regain visual of that. So that's something to look forward to. And I was just acknowledging Brent's update there. So it's obviously in quite a thick area where maybe it's difficult to follow the animal, but with a bit of luck they'll manage to relocate. So now that Brent, another vehicle, is there, it'll increase the chances of relocating. So that's good news to look forward to. Just got a question through from Carol in Florida, still on the subject of hippos, and she's asked how long is a hippo's gestation period, and I stand to be corrected, but I believe it's about 8 or 9 months. So very similar to us humans. I'm sure somebody will be double checking my answer, so please feel free to correct me if I'm off. Ah, tortoise! Wonderful. We'll stop here so that it doesn't, well, as you can see, it is a relatively fast-moving tortoise. It's a leopard tortoise. Which is kind of the tortoise we see mostly here. Where did it disappear to? Often what they do is they just head towards dense foliage, and their shell, which is cryptically patterned does help them blend in very well. Or maybe it just outsped us. Oh, here it is hiding here. So, it's going to be difficult for us to show you. You see in there, Brian, in the base of that bright green little acacia. Yeah, you just zoom in there. We will see it. Or will we? Difficult to see, but it is in there. I can actually see its shell, but it's so difficult to make out or to describe where it is. There you can see the bushes moving a little bit. Anyway, we won't distress it, and it is, yeah, it's slap bang in the middle of shot now. That its camouflage is just too good for us. Give it a second or two to see if it doesn't jiggle a leaf, just to confirm that I am talking the truth. No. It's too clever for us. You've got it in that little gap there. Oh no, the vehicle's in the way. Okay, we'll leave it because we've had much better visuals of tortoises out in the open, and sometimes you just can't force it. It's just not meant to be. And that is a perfect example of a tortoise that does not like the limelight. So we will let it continue. How are you coming along there, Brent? Okay, copy. Kathy's just asked whether it would be possible to establish which direction an animal's heading simply by looking at its dung, and I guess to a certain degree you could with some animals, because the dung will often taper off at one end, and therefore you can assume that the animal would have been facing in one direction when doing its business. But yeah, it would be difficult to simply use the dung of animals. It's important to see their footprints, and yeah, maybe certain really experienced trackers would be able to look into it, but it's typically going to be quite difficult, especially considering a lot of the dung falls from quite a height and may tumble in the air before hitting the ground and then roll once it's hit the ground, that you can't rely on simply the dung to tell which direction it's moving in. But what's important to say on that note is that if any sign is going to be fresh enough to be worth following up, be it dung or footprints, if there's fresh dung, there's going to be fresh footprints alongside it. So you'd naturally just use the dung as an initial indicator, saying, oh well, there's a lion dung that may lead you into the tracks that you may not have seen, and then getting off and having a closer inspection would hopefully lead you to some more useful information regarding the direction the animal headed in. Just got a question through from Shanae on Twitter. Good morning, Shanae. Good to be answering a question from you again. It's been a while. And Shanae has asked whether the leopard tortoise and the hinge-back tortoise are the only two types of tortoise we get in this area. And that is correct, unless I'm forgetting anything. Nope, it's just the serrated, the hinge-backed and the leopard tortoise that we get in this area. And not too many more tortoises throughout South Africa that I'm aware of, or at least in areas where I've worked. It's mainly those two that spread through South Africa. And interesting to see how the leopard tortoise varies in size greatly depending on where you find them in South Africa. Here in the Sabi Sands, they're fairly small relative to how big they get down in the Cape, the Western Cape. Brent, come in. Andrew, if you know where you are, would you mind just letting me know roughly where you guys are, and I might come into that area and give you a hand. So I didn't copy anything there. Alex, are you copying that? It's coming through very badly for me. Okay, copy, thanks. We are a bit far from there to help out. Cool, thank you. Okay. So sadly Brent hasn't had any luck on relocating that leopard. He spent some time on foot in the area hoping to gather some clues, but no luck. But he is still looking around there. And now we've just arrived at Vuyatela Dam, where there are just two buffalo bulls relaxing. That's all we can see for now. Oh, but there's an Inyala coming to drink, so that'll be beautiful to watch. At the other end of the dam. And we've got lucky with seeing animals drinking, because just yesterday when we stopped at Buffelshoek Dam, we got to see a bushbuck drinking. And now we get to see the Inyala, the bushbuck's slightly bigger cousin. Luckily it's found a smaller puddle that's allowing it not to get its hooves dirty and muddy as it would need to if it did come into this main body of water. Also just spotted another green-backed heron, the same heron we were viewing yesterday. So once the Inyala has finished drinking, we we'll be able to watch the green-backed heron doing some hunting. I wonder where the rest of that Inyala's family is. I was having a look to see if I could see them. I see quite a few impala around, but it's interesting that this Inyala is on its own. But I'm sure the rest of the herd's not too far away. Brian, the heron and a monitor lizard are on that fallen down log on the left-hand side there. Sadly we are a bit far, but you can see the heron on that lower branch, and it has been doing a little bit of hunting. And to the left of the heron on the rock there's a water monitor lizard draped out in the sun. You can see relatively clearly. But they're all quite far away, so what we're going to do is we're going to continue in the hope of finding something a little bit closer to show you. Although, what is this woodlands kingfisher going to do? I think it may be finishing off some cleaning. It may have already been plummeting into the water. Let me try and get a little bit closer to it, because again we're a bit too far to appreciate its beauty. Don't go anywhere, please. Oh well. It's just been one of those mornings, and it certainly doesn't upset me having a quieter morning, because if every morning was action-packed and rammed with incredible sightings, then like most things in life, we would start taking it for granted. One thing we can stop and chat about, so I've just remembered, Brian managed to find a snake skin. I'll just try and position it here. You can actually see this is the head plate, and if I just tilt it to the side a little bit, there you can see one eye hole. And if I tilt it a little bit the other way, the other eye hole. So, judging by the size of these eyes, which are quite big relative to the size of the actual snake, it could be a boomslang or a tree snake, which does have notoriously large eyes. Professionals can identify a snake simply by looking at its skin, because you do get these unique shapes on the head of the different snakes. So we'll keep the skin and get the snake book out and be able to have a closer look to try and confirm what type of snake it is. The fact that we also, well, Brian did find the skin in a tree would help indicate to us that it could be a boomslang. And this is the sum total of length, so Not hugely long, but I think it broke quite far up the body. We don't have the back half or the back third of the snake. And that often happens. The snake does often break off the skin in random spots. You can imagine, and myself and Brian were having a laugh earlier, imagine trying to take off a really tight one-piece full body suit, or think maybe of a wet suit or a dry suit. Imagine trying to take one off without any hands.
Wriggling out a wetsuit.
Yeah, like wriggling out of a wetsuit. It must be hugely frustrating and difficult, though thankfully they do get to use thorny trees or crevices where lots of rocks may be joining up, so sorry, go again there, Craig. I don't know anything, just stand by, let me try and get an update. Copy that, Alex. Could you please relay Brent's message in terms of which direction that leopard was heading, so I can just let Craig know? Craig, apparently she was heading south down Vuyatela access before she headed off, I think, west or east. But general movement was south. Negative. Okay, well, apologies, folks, for all those breakdowns in signal and radio chatter, but it does need to happen, and we need to help guys like Craig as much as possible with updates. But it appears that we do need to get the radio doctor out and get our radios up to scratch, because at the moment they are not making our life easy. Because on our own out here, you are not going to have a good time, and it's going to be really tricky in terms of productivity. So it's so important to have that radio, which is the link required to be able to work together as a team, link required to be able to work together as a team between all the different people that are out exploring here. I'm so cautious of these wasps because they are aggressive. We're live. Welcome back, and apologies for all these signal breakups, but myself and Brian for joining us this morning, and hopefully things will be a little bit more exciting this evening. It was a bit of a tough morning, but anything can change, and really look forward to this afternoon's drive. So until then, over to Brent, and thanks again.
Welcome back. Sorry about the technical difficulties. And just to let you know what's happened while you've been with Scott. Lodge. He was driving down the main access road and he spotted a female leopard probably about 25 minutes ago, half an hour ago. So what we're trying to do now is just figure out where she might have gone. Hopefully we can find her in the last few minutes. Otherwise, definitely we'll be back in this area this afternoon. So guys, any questions, please, at questions@WildEarthTV or hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. Hoping she's done is she's moved into that drainage line now as it's got hot. She's going to rest up for the day. But these are wild leopards and they can do whatever they want and prove us completely wrong on a daily basis. Next road. Come on, little spotty cat. We're going to try one last little quick loop around the block. but I'm pretty sure this is where she came from, somewhere in this. But it is, as I said earlier, for the day. Okay. Unfortunately, we've run out of time this morning. So, thanks for joining us this morning, guys. Unfortunately, it was a little bit quiet this morning, but this is the bush, and we cannot make animals appear by magic. But I'm very confident we got a really good chance at possibly finding this female leopard this afternoon. It's really nice and hot now. As you can see, sunglasses and hats are out. And I just want to thank Alex and FC and Scott and Brian on the other vehicle and Andrew on my vehicle. And hopefully we can find you some animals this afternoon. And it's been a great pleasure to come back and join the Safari Live team.